And welcome back. And we are moving into our final conversation. And Kevin is having a big sigh of relief because our special guest, the boa constrictor, is not joining us. But that's because we're focusing on crocodiles today. World Crocodile Day is coming up. And here to tell us more about it, we have Miriam Boucher, who's the research coordinator for the Crocodile Research Coalition. And we have Georgette Williams, who's the environmental educator at the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Crocodile Day. I don't know. Today we're supposed to learn why we should appreciate crocodiles. Is that part of the conversation?
It is part of the conversation, and I can give you so many reasons. But I'm going to focus on a few, and then I think you guys are just going to have to turn up to World Croc Day to find out more.
Yeah. You're good.
So first of all, let's do the education process. We don't have alligators in Belize. We have crocodiles.
Right. So in the world, there are 24 different species of what we call crocodilians, which cover everything from alligators to the Indian gharial, which looks like nothing you've probably ever seen before. Here in Belize, we have two species. We have the Morelets crocodile and the American crocodile. Mm-hmm. So the Morelets crocodile is only found in Belize, Guatemala, and Mexico. Mm-hmm. And the American crocodile is named the American crocodile because it spans the whole of the Americas. So you can find it as far north as Florida and all the way down into South America. So it's a pretty unique species to have here in Belize.
And how do you distinguish between the two?
So the American crocodile is special in that it's one of only 3 that can live in fully salt water. So we tend to see them more along our coastlines, right, and where the rivers meet our sea. Mm-hmm. And then the Morelets crocodile tend to be freshwater, so you find them more inland and in swamps. And when you look at them, Morelets crocodiles have this kind of beautiful yellow color on them sometimes, or in greenish. And the American crocodiles are more gray, and they also have a large kind of bony hump in front of their eyes. So when they sit in the water, if you see something that looks like they've almost had a broken nose before, that's natural, and that's part of their unique distinguishing features.
It's an interesting commemoration for World Crocodile Day because the average person looks at a crocodile and thinks danger. You don't want to go and say, well, we need a lot more crocodiles around here. What is the importance of celebrating World Crocodile Day?
Well, it's really important because crocodiles play not only a really awesome ecological role, but they're also culturally important. You just said that usually when people see crocodiles, they think, like this is so scary, right? But the thing is that across the world, indigenous peoples actually worship crocodiles for bringers of life. Yeah. So they're known to be symbols of fertility, creation, new beginnings. So for example, in the Maya culture, crocodiles played a really heavy and huge role in creation stories, and that they were thought to support the human realm on their back. Yeah. And as well, they were part of some celestial gods and thought to be protectors of portals to the underworld because they also lived in caves. Yeah. So hugely important. And you can take that across the world to Egypt, where the crocodile god Sobek was the ruler of the Nile. And so he was the king of fertility and bringer of life to the Nile River Valley where the Egyptians lived and farmed. So our perception nowadays, right, is much different than how ancient people operated. And that's because a lot of what we see on the media can inform our opinions to think that they're scary. Yeah. We're very lucky the animals that we have here in Belize are very timid. They want nothing to do with people, but they play a huge ecological role. So like you see wolves in other places, jaguars in our forests, sharks on our reef, crocodiles are top predators. So what they do is they manage all the other species under them and make sure that the prey species that we do have are healthy and in good shape because they tend to eat the ones that are sicker, slower, diseased.
I love nature.
Right?
They control it by eating them.
Exactly. And so for us too, we benefit from that because Belize has a huge fishing culture. And so having crocodiles around, keeping them wild, they help regulate those systems for us so that we can benefit from that as well.
What do they normally eat, though? What are the prey that they go after?
So the American crocodiles are generally fish eaters and crab eaters. Morelets crocodiles, fish, crabs, snails, turtles, small mammals, birds. Yeah.
Small mammals. Okay.
Rats and raccoons.
Dogs.
Well, and I was going to get there because I think our exposure as the public to crocodiles are those that have come in conflict with different communities. Mm-hmm. And it has really led to the fear that we have. that they're eating our dogs or they're eating
humans.
Yeah, small children, which we've heard people use that as what they believe to happen. I can recall when I was younger in San Pedro going to the pond and watching the crocodile being fed chickens. And I know it's a practice that is completely discouraged. So while most people run away, we went because we wanted to see the crocodile, and it was massive. But why is it important for us to understand that this type of engagement with wildlife, specifically crocodile, is more to our detriment and more to their detriment as well?
Well, for starters, crocodiles have kind of a natural respect for people. We are their biggest threat. We are their biggest predator when it comes down to it. After a certain size, there's really not much that can bother a crocodile other than people. And so they have an innate fear and respect for people generally. And so if we operate within our own space and give them theirs, normally we do not expect or see much conflict. But when we feed crocodiles, we begin to tell them that people are not a threat, and we give them a positive association that approaching or being near people is a good thing. We're also teaching them that people have food. And that is a very fine line to cross between people have food and people are food. Right? They're extremely intelligent. They can study routine and figure things out. So if somebody is feeding a crocodile every day at the same spot and they hear a splash and they know food, then if somebody is playing on shore and a ball hits the water, the crocodile is going to clue in to think that, that's food. So we condition them to think that way. So for us, whether it's your neighbor feeding a crocodile, it's not a closed system. That can swim easily 3 blocks down and be in somebody's yard and cause a problem. So as communities, we have to work together to understand that these are wild animals. They're part of that. So appreciation. Like, hug them with your eyes. Don't feed them. Watch them eat iguanas or fish or crabs or whatever. Appreciate that natural wild side of that, and know that that's something really to take pride in for our communities.
And the livestock issue, I know people who have concerns when their livestock or go too close to a water's edge and then the crocodiles are feeding on them. How can you hinder that? I mean, it isn't overtly feeding the crocodile.
No, definitely not. But there are strategies to that. So number one, most of the crocodiles that we have in Belize aren't big enough to take anything like a cow or even a sheep, right? And so what we see most of the time with livestock are people's chickens and ducks. And half the time, chickens, let's be honest, are not the brightest. A lot of times they just wander into the water and they drown. And so for us, like whether it's a crocodile or like a rogue chicken that's decided to go for a swim and never come back, what we can do is put up almost like a little barrier fence. It doesn't have to be a giant chain link fence. It can be a little bit of chicken wire that keeps animals back just 10 feet off the shore.
You're painting a very innocent picture of crocodiles. And I'll be honest, I had a very bad experience of a family member of mine right in Balama area, who his son, he actually died afterwards, a magistrate, Mrs. Swift, who his child actually died after having contact with a croc, I assume. So is this the green that you're talking about though?
Yeah, this is the yellow color, that's a Morelets Crocodile.
What is a healthy balance between the natural fear of crocs and just allowing them to be? Because we are inhabiting a lot of the areas, I assume, where they naturally live. What is the healthy balance?
Well, there is one, and we're working on finding that. Right? There's never been a management program for crocodiles in Belize, and in terms of conservation and awareness of crocodiles, we've been a little bit slower in getting that going and getting people information and strategies. Now, the number one thing is like crocodiles are not completely innocent. They're an animal that has a lot of power, and there's a potential for accidents, there's a potential for injury, and people's safety is extremely important, and that's number one. And so I think on our front, what we can do is mitigate risks that we have in our communities and in our households by doing things like not feeding, either directly feeding a croc or cleaning our fish traps behind our house, right? I'd rather go have takeout than cook a 5-course meal. And if somebody's throwing that out their back porch, like, I will be there, right? So things like that, the indirect feeding.
So those actually, so if I clean fish, if I'm a fisherman and I clean fish, I live next to one of the riverways and I clean fish there, I may be attracting crocodiles to my area.
Right, so that's another thing too, the indirect feeding. So we can do things like mitigate not feeding by being aware that times of peak activity for crocodiles are in the early morning and in the early evening, right? During the middle of the day when the temperature gets hot, they tend to go hide. So knowing what times are better or worse to be near the water. And then two, just being aware of what crocodiles are in your area and just not necessarily being afraid off the bat, but being vigilant to see maybe somebody 3 blocks away has been feeding it and now it's coming up very boldly. Yeah. And so when that happens, the balance can be that automatically that's not an animal that needs to be killed or removed, but the Belize Forest Department is a resource to be called for them to come assess. Mm-hmm. They work very closely with us, and so we can assist communities as well in that. And I think apart from that as well, you nailed it on the head, is that we are inhabiting a lot of areas where crocodiles are now. Yeah. So we have to also do our due diligence in protecting areas outside of our cities where crocodiles can thrive and survive and not necessarily be in direct contact with people. And so now, that's one thing too.
Education is important, and I think you educated us very early on that crocodiles wouldn't take an animal as large as a cow, which is one of the things that we had assumed.
Yes.
And I want to bring Georgette in here to talk about how the zoo and your education component works with. I mean, you have a lot of children coming through. How do you start to establish that foundation as to how to build a healthy relationship with the crocodile population in Belize? Understanding potential dangers and whatnot.
Okay, so it's really good to work with children because, adults, more than likely, they've learned from the bottom up that, like he mentioned, a lot of adults already, they hate crocodiles. Like, let's admit it, a lot of adults already hate crocodiles, and it's so hard for you to explain to a parent that, this crocodile isn't going to do such and such. But with children, it's a lot easier because they're just learning. So you bring them to the zoo, they're able to see we have Nelson, which is our Morelets Crocodile. We have Brutus, who is our American crocodile. We also have a little crocodile in our turtle pond whose name is Speedy. And so you bring them to the zoo, you show them these crocodiles.
He doesn't eat the turtles.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I like the yet part.
Yeah, he's still really, really small. So you bring them to the zoo, you're able to show them the animal, and we all know that a lot of people, they appreciate things more when they can actually see it. So you show them the animal, you explain to them, why it's important to believe. And with the kids, they're able to grasp that so easily, and it's really easier for you to get a sort of appreciation out of them. It's also easier for you to tell them, hey, you know what, this crocodile isn't a bad crocodile, it's just here because someone was feeding it, you shouldn't do this. And then they're able to take that home to their parents. And so it works a lot easier because then a lot of time we have the kids actually going home and saying, Mom and Dad, I learned this. And so it's just a lot easier to get through to them than it is to get through to older people. But we do the outreach with everyone. And so we have our educational tours where you're able to learn about all the animals. From time to time, I do get some guests that I show them Brutus. He's almost 16 feet, and I'm like, American, like Miriam mentioned, American crocodiles the crocodiles we have in Belize, they're not man-eaters, they have a natural fear of humans, they respect us. And so you show them Brutus and you try to tell them, this crocodile in the wild, it's not gonna attack people. And sometimes it's hard. People are like,
of course, blame Hollywood. Have you seen the movies?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's hard.
It's like one mouthful.
It's hard most of the time because people are like, are you seeing, they don't believe me. And so, like I mentioned, it's just a lot of outreach. You just have to keep doing it, and eventually you'll get the message across.
What are the rules of engagement? Because we do know, and I know Kevin spoke of an incident in Belama. That's one of the areas that we usually get reports. So they're coming in through the riverway, and then they go into the little canals near the homes. And the homes are literally next door. People talk of missing dogs. People see them wandering about. What is the best way to approach this issue? And keeping safety in mind. I mean, if the crocodile is wandering into your backyard, then you're already a bit at risk there, right?
Well, I would touch on just one of the main ways, like what Miriam mentioned. You try not to approach the animal because it's a wild animal, you don't know, like she mentioned, you don't really know if the crocodile was being fed somewhere else. So you see the crocodile in your yard, you know nothing of that crocodile. So I would say that the proper way to deal with it would be to call the Department of Forestry, maybe call the CRC, or sometimes I see people, they take a picture and reach out on Facebook if they don't know exactly who to contact. Yeah. So I think that would be the first step, like don't engage the crocodile. I mean, you know nothing about...
Don't try to catch it.
Yeah, don't try to catch it. That's one of the, don't try to catch it. Don't feed it, feed it and,
call fisheries.
Make it.
Call forestry.
Yeah, call the forestry department. You can call CRC, or like I mentioned, some people will post it on Facebook if they don't know who to call, and then I guess that's one way of getting the numbers of who you should call. But definitely do not try to catch it. Do not go close to it. Just leave it be and wait for the authorities to get there.
In terms of, can I broaden it a little, in terms of the research that has been done on this animal, are crocs like turtles, where evolutionary wise they're the closest thing we can see to the prehistoric sort of animals? And what, like I was watching a documentary on whales and how we've managed to take certain things from the whale and use it in modern technology. Is there anything from the croc? That's 3 questions in one. Sure.
I can nail it.
Break them down.
All right.
Yeah.
So number 1, crocodiles they're living, crocodiles, their ancestors lived at the same time as dinosaurs. So evolutionarily, their ancestors are between 280 million years old.
Wow.
They came from a line of dinosaurs called the archosaurs, which means ruling reptiles. Triceratops, T-Rex was in that, and also our feathered friends. So crocodiles are actually more closely related to birds than they are to any other reptile.
Wow.
How is that possible?
Wow.
So because they have scales and they're cold-blooded, we automatically kind of lumped them in with reptiles.
Yeah.
But as research...
They're just big lizards.
Yeah. But as research is increasing, what we're finding more and more is that they are way more similar to birds than they are other reptiles. So for example, other reptiles have 3 chambers in their heart. Crocodiles have 4. Their bone structure, the way that air goes into their lungs, is way more similar to that of a bird than other reptiles. So that's one thing.
Were these things flying at one point in time, in essence?
No, they branched off. So they had like a common ancestor.
Okay.
And crocodiles went this way and birds shot for the sky.
Okay. All right.
I got scared just now.
Yeah, that's frightening.
Yeah.
But have you ever seen them swimming? It's like...
They can fly. And then in terms of like what we can get from them, like what people use from whales, crocodiles have one of the strongest innate immune systems in the world. And what that means is that for humans, for us to have an immune response, to be able to fight something off, we have to get sick first and build antibodies. Crocodiles have an immune system that anything foreign gets in there, ready to roll. Wow. So some of the serum, some of the immune system products are actually being used to look at treatments for illnesses. Like for example, if you inject a crocodile with the AIDS virus, the crocodile's immune system kills the AIDS virus like this. So that's not something we can't just give people crocodile blood, but there are things
but they're researching.
But there are people researching ways that we can use that to the benefit. Another thing,
so what you're saying is crocodiles don't get sick?
Well, they do, but only in extreme circumstances when there's really high environmental toxicity. So if you see a crocodile in poor health, that's a huge alarm bell for people in that area. If something that's been around for this long with this crazy immune system is that sick, people need to watch out.
Wiped out.
Right. So we use them as an indicator too.
So tell us about the research that's ongoing in Belize. You mentioned earlier that the Crocodile Research Coalition is doing some work here. What are you trying to find out?
We just about everything that we can about crocodiles. Our main goal right now is that crocodiles in Belize were almost completely wiped out between 1920 and 1970. They were officially protected in country in 1981.
Humans were killing them?
Yes. So they were killed for sport, they were killed for meat, and they were killed for skins with no regulation. Okay. So they were almost completely wiped out. The last population surveys were done over 20 years ago, and we have no idea how many crocodiles there are in Belize. So it's hard for us to be able to help people, help the government, help each other do conservation if we don't know how many there are or where they are. And so the CRC for the past year and a half has been leading a nationwide Morelets Crocodile survey, and are kicking off an American Crocodile survey this summer. We work with amazing organizations throughout the country, like the Belize Zoo, like SACD and FCD and TIDE, which are agencies in the north, center, and south of the country that are heavily involved in conservation and land management, as well as,
right?
That is an American, yeah. As well as the Belize Forest Department, to figure out how many crocodiles we have and build capacity in the fantastic agencies that already operate here in Belize to be able to be better advocates and resources for communities, and also to monitor the population long-term moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's one of our big research.
How do you find them to even know the population?
You gotta go out at night. Like I said, during the day,
You're real life crocodile hunters.
we're crocodile researchers. We don't hunt them.
You hunt to find, not to kill.
Yeah. But our population survey method is that we go out at night. That's when they're more active. And we actually look for their eye shine. So we use a big spotlight and we shine for them. Their eyes shine, what you get back, kind of, when you take like a terrible picture and your eyes are all red. It's a little bit like that, but bright orange. Yeah.
But how do you know you're not just counting the same crocodile?
We go on a set route. So we complete one whole route in one night. So we don't double back or anything like that.
So what are the numbers looking like so far?
We have got probably close to 1,000 Morelets Crocodiles surveyed. That's throughout the country. That's not a huge number.
Oh, okay.
In other areas, there are thousands and thousands. The American crocodile, we don't know. The last time they were surveyed, the entire country, almost 1,000 kilometers surveyed, there was only 292 found, which was the lowest reported for the entire region.
Oh, wow.
And we don't know what their status is like now. The American crocodiles right now, as listed by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, they're the ones who say, yeah, it's extinct, it's endangered. They have an international population estimate of 10 to 20,000, which is actually less than what they have listed for polar bears and lions.
Wow.
So the American crocodile is, definitely a conservation concern.
So what you're telling us is that we really need to start caring about crocodiles.
Well, it's something that's very unique to Belize. It's something that I think that Belize can take a lot of pride in having.
And when you say care, I can ask a personal question. I see you live this. You have you're tatted
my
up with a croc's eye.
Yeah.
Why your passion for it? What got you to say, man, this is gonna tat it up and I'm gonna live this life?
I have a really strong and healthy respect for crocodiles. I know what they're capable of, but I find in them some things that are really unique and really spectacular. There's very few animals out there that can transit between being on land and the water so effectively. They're perfectly stealthy, they're extremely intelligent, and they're the #1 moms out there.
That's true. Why? Tell me.
Yeah, so they take really good care of their young. Crocodile will nurse their babies when they're born. They take them on their back. They take care of them. A distress call from a baby crocodile will call the mom just like that. And so that's also important, like when you were talking about what not to do. If you see a crocodile nest or something like that, you should definitely not try to engage it, because crocodiles are also able, like when they're ready to be dug out, they can use a call and they can call their mom and tell them, from within the egg, it's I'm ready. Yeah, from within the egg, they're able to call the mom and tell them, we're ready to be dug out. So the mom knows I'm gonna start digging out these eggs so they can
leave the
hatch.
babies alone.
Yeah, so definitely leave the babies alone, because they're such good moms. They will protect their babies at any cost.
Isn't it easy to regenerate? Not easy, but isn't it easier to regenerate? Because how many eggs do they?
It's a reproductive cycle.
Yes, the reproductive cycle. Can't we just get a lot of eggs and just?
Potentially, like there are programs that do that, ranching programs that collect wild eggs, and they'll take half and keep them for use for things like for harvest, almost like you would with livestock, so they can be used for skins and meat. And jewelry products, things like that. And then the other half are raised to about 3 feet, 4 feet, and then released into the wild to help wild populations. The big thing is that on average, they can lay anywhere between 20 to 80 eggs. Average for a large female would be 40. But if you were to take 100 hatched eggs, only one would make it to adulthood. So you'd need 2 to 3 pairs of crocodiles to make one adult. And so when we're working with really low populations, that's why it's it's really important to understand that it's not just one crocodile that we remove. It's, you know,
potential for
reproduction. Many. And so they're very slow to mature as well. It takes them between 6 to 8 years to get sexually mature, depending on their size. So it can take a long time for them to get there. And it's a big journey. There's lots of things out there that like to eat baby crocs.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Revenge.
This is so tell us how Croc Day will be celebrated in Belize.
So this Saturday at the Belize Zoo, we're going to celebrate World Croc Day. So it's going to start at 10 a.m. We have a lot of games, prizes. We have Croc books as prizes. We're going to have Jasmine the Croc, which is our giant paper mache crocodile. She's going to be out there so people can take pictures. We have Rose the Croc. That's the crocodile that the book was actually written about. And so Rose the Croc, as usual, people, the director of the zoo is going to be up front with Rose for part of the day, you know, so people can see Rose. You know, Rose is a huge ambassador for her species. So she's one of the crocodiles, you know, you take the books to schools, you read it to kids. She's one of the crocodiles that has really, you know, heightened the appreciation
her
that
mouth
these
isn't
kids...
Taped.
She's 1 in a million.
Yeah, she's spectacular. So this was when she was a lot younger. So
she's a rescue.
Yeah, she was a rescue. So she's spectacular. She's gonna be.
That's the book that Sharmatola wrote. Rose,
This Croc rocks.
Yeah.
And so we have some posters. So all of this, a lot of Croc-related prizes are gonna be given out, and also the CRC is gonna be there with their booth. They're gonna have some equipment, show people the kind of equipment that they use to do these crocodile research. You know, everyone wants to see it. It seems like a really cool job. And so it's just going to be like a really fun family event at the Belize Zoo. Of course, like I mentioned, we have our ambassador crocodiles, Brutus, our really big American
This is Father's
crocodile.
Day weekend, in case y'all forgot.
Yeah.
You know, so interesting thing to do with fathers. And
take that to go
Take
see
that to
Brutus.
go
much
see the
is when
crocodile.
there,
Take that to go see Brutus, you know. Nelson, like I mentioned, Speedy, it's going to be a really good event.
All right, and it starts at what time? 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. Ladies, thank you for coming out this morning and telling us so much about the species. I really didn't know a lot of what you shared, and so we will all begin to have a better appreciation for crocodiles in the country. Thank you.
No, thank you guys.
We're going to go ahead and take a final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.